Okay, we're going to watch a portion of this next video. This is actually from Kaz, and she is reading she's reading Fiona Barnett's book, and this is part of it. This is talking about activism and support systems that have been around now for decades, really.
Pedophiles. P.I.E. In 1971, an Adelaide barrister for the Communist Party of Australia created the precursor to what later became the Pedophile Information Exchange, in other words, P.I.E. This lawyer was the late Elliot Johnson. The Pedophile Information Exchange was formed from earlier pedophile groups such as the Lewis Carroll Collectors Guild and the homosexual Peter Pan Club. Another founder of this organisation from the Peter Pan Club was Frank Houston, who also founded the pseudo-church, the Assembly of God. Houston was pastor of the Surrey Hills Christian Centre, which later morphed into Hillsong Church. Houston, as an organiser for the Peter Pan Club, when he was contacted by Elliot Johnson and asked to assist in forming a united front for organised paedophilia. This resulted in the formation of the Pedophile Information Exchange in February 1973. This organisation was then exported to the United Kingdom. The above is an excerpt from correspondence I received in 2017. P.I.E. campaigned for the social and legal acceptance of pedophilia. To quote them, "We want to dispel the myths connected to pedophilia and show that most pedophiles desire gentle, loving and mutually pleasurable relationships. We believe it is inhumane to children to outlaw their sexuality, and we support moves to lower the age of consent." P.I.E. proposed reducing the age of consent to age 4 years. Their motto was "Sex before 8, before it's too late." P.I.E. produced a magazine, Understanding Pedophilia, which contained articles written by psychologists. P.I.E. was affiliated with the UK National Council for Civil Liberties and backed by the Campaign for Homosexual Equality. The UK government gave P.I.E. grants totalling at least £70,000 via the Home Office between 1977 and 1980. P.I.E. membership exceeded 1,000 by the early 80s, to include judges, politicians, scoutmasters, head teachers, diplomats, aristocrats, intelligence agents, and child protection experts. Notable P.I.E. members were Prime Minister Edward Heath, regularly attended P.I.E. meetings in Westminster; Richard Morris Clive Bigham, son of Viscount Mercy, convicted of raping sisters aged 6 and 10; Sir Peter Hayman, senior diplomat, a British High Commissioner to Canada, Foreign Office Minister. In 1981, MP Geoffrey Dickens used parliamentary privilege to expose information that Thatcher had suppressed. Hayman sent pornographic material through the post. Dickens consequently received death threats and was burgled. Next one is Jeffrey Arthur Prime, British intelligence officer, Soviet spy, convicted in 1982 of raping 3 girls. Peter Wrighton, P.I.E. founder, UK's most senior child social worker, scapegoat for entire VIP network. And Charles Napier, P.I.E. treasurer, school teacher. Moral panic. Peter Wrighton was charged and cautioned for raping a boy in 1960. In 1981, in a 1981 publication, Perspectives on Pedophilia, Wrighton attacked the moral panic over pedophilia and said, with the child's willing compliance, the sex is unlikely to do much harm. The UK's top social worker and child protection expert, Wrighton served as director of the National Children's Bureau charity, director of the National Institute for Social Work, and consultant for the National Children's Bureau. In 1992, Peter Wrighton was convicted of possessing hardcore child abuse porn obtained from Amsterdam. Police also found a diary containing scores of boys whom investigators believe Wrighton had sexually abused. At the time of his arrest, Wrighton lived with his gay pedophile partner at the 2,500-acre estate of Lord John and Leslie Henniker Major, who operated as an educator.
Okay, I wanted to introduce you to P.I.E, the Pedophile Information Exchange, and we're going to read a little bit more about that here. Okay, this man is a pedophile and proud of it. It's great. P.I.E is the publication, March 2015. London, UK. Tom O'Carroll is a pedophile. Every 3 months, 2 police officers visit him at home in England. A condition of his 2006 conviction and imprisonment for distributing child pornography. They are always polite, he says. He keeps a blog because he cannot legally have sexual relations or relationships with the people he wants most, children who have not yet reached puberty. He writes to relieve the frustration of unfulfilled desire and of living in a society that tells him that those desires are illegal, harmful, evil, sick. He believes this conclusion is incorrect. He believes there are children, even those of a very young age, who like and seek sex with adults. He believes that adults who want to satisfy this perceived need should be legally allowed to do so. He believes there are situations where it is all right for adults to have sexual relationships with children. He knows that this makes him a monster in the public eye. He would encounter such revulsion less if he kept these opinions to himself, as most of the few people who share them do. The sex offender registry in the United Kingdom is not public as it is in the United States. No one has to know the most private thoughts of a gray-haired former teacher with ice blue eyes. But he can't stop himself. For almost 40 years, O'Carroll, 69, has been an outspoken advocate of what he sees as his right to desire children, and detractor of those who would oppress those desires. He has argued this position on television, in books, blog posts, and the comment sections of other blogs. He has logged volumes upon volumes of lucid, copiously footnoted prose. When officers failed to take notes during his last monitoring interview in January, he sent them an unsolicited 5,000-word manuscript clarifying and detailing his answers. The UK is grappling with major investigations of child sexual abuse reportedly perpetrated and covered up by senior figures and institutions in the 1970s and 80s. This coincides with the seminal time in O'Carroll's own history when his voluminous capacity for argument and extraordinary conviction that pedophilia is a power for good found a momentary toehold in the public sphere. While others sort through shame, anger, and unanswered questions, he is among the infinitesimal, population of people who looks back at the time and waxes nostalgic for a golden era of pedophilia. This was the era of make love, not war, and so forth, he said. A general liberated atmosphere. Things have gone, as far as I'm concerned, steadily downhill since then in terms of sexual anxiety being greater and greater towards children. The pedophile lobby. Before there was the internet and the alternate universe of pro-pedophilia blogs and forums where O'Carroll and like-minded people now congregate, there was a brief but singular time in British history when their views were allowed their closest ever access to the mainstream. O'Carroll was a chair of the Pedophile Information Exchange, P.I.E., a London-headquartered advocacy group that existed from 1974 to 1984 to lobby openly for legal acceptance of pedophilia and to provide an international network for adults with sexual attraction to children. Pedophiles do not use a child's sexuality. Pedophiles develop a mutual sexuality with the child. It's an entirely reciprocal relationship, former P.I.E. chairman Stephen Adrian Smith told a skeptical BBC interviewer in 1983. The responsible and caring pedophile always refers to the firm wishes of the child. The group billed itself as another front in the sexual liberation movement of the 1970s. Even in the age of free love, P.I.E. was considered a controversial fringe element. Staff and students protested O'Carroll's speaking engagements at universities, and many who spoke up in defense of the group's right to free speech expressed disgust at its agenda. But the group was affiliated with the National Council for Civil Liberties, now the respected lobby group Liberty. In a 1976 submission to Parliament on changing the law governing age of consent, the NCCL wrote, "Childhood sexual experiences willingly engaged in with an adult result in no identifiable damage." In 2013, Liberty director Shami Chakrabarti said the group's past connection to P.I.E. was a subject of continuing disgust and horror. P.I.E.'s existence coincided with a time in which widespread sexual abuse of children is alleged to have taken place at institutions across Britain tasked with children's care. Multiple police operations, several institutional internal investigations, and a national inquiry are now sorting through claims that abusers were allowed access to children in institutions that were meant to protect them, and that government officials knowingly covered up their crimes. The rest of the article goes on to talk about how a lot of the people affiliated with P.I.E. were in positions of authority, which Fiona Barnett had hit on in her book as well.